The SEC had a dip in total revenue from 2023 to 2024. Excuse me, from the 2022-23 season to the 2023-2024 season. Welcome back to everybody. I am Caleb Calhoun of Off the Hook Sports, and I'm going to talk to you about why Greg Sankey is destroying the SEC slowly but surely with every decision he makes and everything he does. This is a take on Greg Sankey. I am going to go ham on him and sit back and enjoy it. The league reported a slight dip in revenue going from $852.6 million in 2022-23 to $839.7 million in 2023-2024. Now, to be fair, they distributed more money to their full members, reporting from about $718 million to $790.7 million. And part of that's factoring in the partial amounts for Oklahoma and Texas joining. So they had to give more money, but they had a dip in revenue. This is before the ESPN contract came through. Okay, this is before the ESPN contract came through. More importantly, in case you want to know, the Big Ten for fiscal year 2023 reported $880 million in revenue. That's right, $880 million. So the Big Ten is already beating the SEC, which had a drop in revenue this year, or this past year, 2023-2024. And now the Big Ten is clearing them by $40 million. $40 million. And this is before the new TV contracts are coming in, which that's going to be reported after this fiscal year, 2024-25. And the same with the Big Ten, 2024-25, in which the Big Ten has a $1 billion deal and the SEC has a $300 million deal per year. Greg Sankey's got to be fired. Greg Sankey's got to go. He's got to go now before people start talking about him in the most negative ways. Guys, look at what the ACC's been stuck with what everybody considers the worst deal ever when they signed a 20-year long-term deal in 2016. Look at the old Pac-12, which has dissolved because Larry Scott thought it was a smart move to give them a long-term contract way back in 2009, 2008, and people thought it was smart, and it ended up getting them stuck way behind as more revenue was happening. Greg Sankey did the same thing. He did a 10-year deal, and he did it back in 2019 before even knowing Texas and Oklahoma were going to join, thinking all the way out to 2024. And then the Big Ten follows the SEC after they add Texas and Oklahoma. They go add USC and UCLA, and then they negotiate their deal, and they're able to get it done within 2 years, and then they have 7 years, and they're going to be done with that, and they'll be renegotiating in 2031 for $1.3 billion or more, probably. That's my guess. So there will be a 3-year period where the Big Ten is bringing in $1 billion more in revenue than the SEC from the TV deals. But before we're even getting to that point, before we're even getting there, Greg Sankey and the SEC brought in less money than the Big Ten the past 2 years. Oh, and by the way, the SEC's revenue share is decreasing. They brought in less money in 2023-24 than they did in 2022-23. What? Guys, I'm sorry. Now, you could make up the point of, oh, they didn't have a team in the national championship game in 2024, and they did in 2023. That's fair. I give you that. But I'll raise you one by saying that should have been made up for by in 2023 during that season. The SEC championship game was much bigger of a deal than the 2022 SEC title game, because the 2022 SEC title game was one in which everybody knew Georgia was going to blow out LSU, whereas in 2023, you had two teams playing to get into the college football playoff. So that's not an excuse, okay? Now, more importantly, as the SEC reported a dip in revenue, Greg Sankey gave himself a pay raise. Greg Sankey's salary increased by $670,000 from $3.55 million to $4.22 million. Now, I'm no economer here, okay? But if you've got the best brand, the best product in your field, and you're still making less money off it than another product, and you see a decrease in that product's revenue from year to year, shouldn't your salary decrease a little bit too? Just a thought, just what I'm saying. Okay. In 5 years, Greg Sankey is going to be looked at like Larry Scott was with the Pac-12. In 5 years, Greg Sankey is going to be looked at like Larry Scott was with the Pac-12. He is destroying the SEC right in front of us. And I, guys, need to take a chill pill. Probably need to get into a hot tub. Probably won by Dynasty Pools and Spas. So I'm going to give you a quick ad from Dynasty Pools and Spas and come back and talk more about this.
Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount. Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com.
The SEC is killing itself with what they're doing because of what Greg Sankey has done in the back contracts. You know, Greg Sankey, like the rest of the commissioners in college football, the Big Four, which we're going to talk about soon, and I'm talking Tony Petitti, like even the ACC and Big 12 commissioners, they've taken a blowtorch to tradition and everything we love about college football. They've destroyed the Pac-12. They've devalued conference championship games to the nth degree. They've created imbalanced schedules with these super conferences. And everything we heard about why they did that is it's just business. This is the money era of college football, and you got to do what you got to do. Okay, but if it's just business and you got to do what you got to do, well, hey, shouldn't you make the best business moves? Because that ain't what Greg Sankey is doing. I want to bring up a stat for you guys real quick. Okay. The SEC, like most people, has an exit fee. Now, theoretically, no one has ever asked to leave the SEC, okay? Like, let's just point that out. No one has ever actually asked to leave the SEC. But they do have an exit fee of $45 million, okay? They have an exit fee of $45 million. I'm going to make a prediction right now. I'm doing the math in my head. All right. If you divide what I think the Big Ten's next contract is going to be, and you look at what the SEC's next contract is going to be, there's going to be, it's going to be a $50 million difference in TV revenue between the Big Ten payouts and the SEC payouts once this contract is up in 2031 for the Big Ten. I am telling you guys right now, I'm going to go ahead and say it. There's going to be a long-term blue blood charter member of the SEC that takes the plunge and leaves for the Big Ten. Yes, you heard me right. There will be a charter member, an original member of the SEC that's a blue blood that takes the plunge and leaves for the Big Ten. I am not kidding. Think about this for a minute. If your exit fee is $45 million, heck, right now the Big Ten schools are just, with this new contract, they're bringing in $20 million, $21 million more per school than the SEC. That's an NIL budget. You make up the exit fee in 3 years. You make up the exit fee in 3 years. That's insane. Okay. So, yeah, they'll pay that. Now, there's obviously the grant of rights issue, which every conference has. Okay, every conference has, and SEC teams have it too. So you obviously have to sign a grant of rights contract if you're in the SEC, and that thing is more ironclad than people want it to be. That's why Florida State and Clemson, everybody was hoping they'd get out of the ACC. We reported to you guys first. It's not happening. Those grant of rights contracts are ironclad. What that means is if a school in the SEC left the SEC would get to control all their revenue. That typically lasts through a TV contract of some sort. I don't know exactly when the grant of rights ends for the SEC. Okay, for the SEC teams, but those are temporary contracts. And if you have to sign on to the grant of rights, by the way. So for instance, the SEC can't claim grant of rights over you if the league can vote collectively on an exit fee. They can't vote collectively on grant of rights. The school just has to agree that they get their grant of rights. When the grant of rights agreement is up, whenever that is, and I don't have the data in front of me, there will be an SEC team that leaves for the Big Ten. And it's going to be the most humiliating moment of any SEC commissioner's career when that happens. The SEC has lost teams before. Sewanee gave up football, so they lost them. Georgia Tech didn't like certain scholarship and academic rules, so they left for the ACC. Stupid. Tulane did the same thing, and now Tulane is Group of 5. It's a different era. Okay, there will be a team leave the SEC for the Big Ten whenever the grant of rights is up. Now, I'm here to ask you this. I set up a poll question. Is Greg Sankey running the SEC into the ground? 56% say yes, 44% say no. People don't know. People really don't understand. Mark Carter says UK would leave. Mark, I got to be honest, I don't know if Kentucky would have the leverage to leave, to be fair. I'm not sure if the Big Ten would take Kentucky. It would have to be more of a blue blood. But what people don't realize is that it's a slow decline. It's a slow burn. And I've been on the soapbox and I'm staying on it. But it's a slow decline of when it happens. But as it happens, it's going to get faster and faster and faster and worse and worse and worse really, really fast. So you're not seeing it now. I told you yesterday, SEC is still dominating recruiting on the trail. They're still dominating the transfer portal. They still are dominating the Super Bowl. They have the dominant NFL talent. They are the fertile recruiting ground in the South. But over time, those TV deals are going to make more money, are going to make a lot more money for the Big Ten, and the SEC's going to be totally screwed when that happens, okay? So the real issue is, again, what's it going to be? By the way, I'll just say this. How are you dropping your revenue? How are you having a dip in revenue before these new TV contracts? What is happening? This is all, I'm bringing you guys this because Greg Sankey signed this bad deal, and I've been projecting how things would fall apart. But the SEC is falling further behind the Big Ten now before the deals even go into effect. I'm telling you guys, this is going to be disastrous for the SEC long term. It's going to be embarrassing and it's going to be humiliating. And I hear a lot of people saying constantly, well, that contract with ESPN, they can't stay in it. You know, these contracts aren't ironclad. Greg Sankey basically tried to tell Dave in an interview a couple of years ago, that contract's not ironclad. It's ironclad. That's wishful thinking. That contract is ironclad. I'm just going to bring that to you right now. That contract is totally ironclad, and it's a real problem. The show brought to you by Double D Piping. A quick message from them, and I'll talk more about this.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Scotty Vol says this conversation seems irrelevant with the constant realignment. No, Scotty. The constant realignment, what it's doing is it's propelling 2 major conferences into an arms race. And the SEC and the Big Ten are the Soviets in the United States in the Cold War. And right now, the SEC is looking to be more like the Soviet Union, and the Big Ten is looking to be more like the United States, because as we know, the United States had much more capital to withstand that long term. This is an arms race. This is an arms race because one conference is in the rush to become the world's sole superpower, And the Big Ten has a giant leg up on the SEC. And when that and as of right now, blue blood SEC teams aren't feeling it. They could feel it in 10 years, though. And then what happens when you have these massive recruiting disadvantages? Look, I'm telling you right now, if you're Tennessee, you figure out what you can do. If you're Tennessee, if you're Alabama, if you're Florida, if you're Georgia, you do what you can right now to plan an exit from the SEC, and you pay that exit fee if you have to. The grant rights thing you got to figure out. You just can't afford to play football with no TV exposure. Okay, so the grant rights thing you got to figure out, but you wait till it expires, and you bolt for the Big Ten. I mean, you run to the Big Ten at this point, because Greg Sankey has absolutely set this conference on a path to irrelevancy, and it's slow. It's a slow burn, but it's going to happen. The SEC has lost the arms race with the Big Ten just because of this revenue, and you're going to see it. And I'm saying after 5 years, it is disastrous. And the thing that's so bad, the reason I'm talking about this now is because of the fact that Greg Sankey increased his salary. Yes, that's right. Increased his salary while the revenue for the SEC dipped year over year. He doesn't care about the long-term success of the SEC. He cares about his money, okay? And you guys are letting a North Carolina grad destroy what was built over a century. It's disastrous. Almost a century. The SEC was founded in 1933. This is a disaster waiting to happen. And I'm telling you, be patient. It's going to come.